In the stillness between heartbeats, a man may not realize the moment he begins to fall in love. Not with a face, not with a body, but with a feeling, a sense of being seen without words. Love does not arrive like thunder. It whispers like wind moving through bamboo, gentle, invisible, but impossible to ignore. And yet, so few understand what truly happens inside a man's soul when love begins its quiet descent. This journey is not about romance or desire. It is about how a man opens, not with haste, but like a lotus in the morning sun. Today, we walk this silent path of inner discovery. If you stay until the very end, something within you will not be the same. Perhaps you will not only understand men more deeply running through the park, but understand your own heart with a clarity you've never felt before. So ask yourself, what does it take to open the gate of a guarded soul? In the heart of every man is a quiet yearning, not for noise or spectacle, not for conquest or display, but for something still, something sacred, a place where the shields fall away and what remains is simply allowed to be. In this place, love does not shout, it listens. It does not chase, it waits. And this is where love begins, not in excitement or infatuation, but in the soil of safety. When a man begins to fall in love, it is not with a face or a figure. It is with a feeling, the subtle knowing that he is safe, not judged, not demanded, not tested, just safe to breathe, to soften, to exist without the need to perform. Safety is the foundation. Without it, nothing grows. Even the strongest seed will not sprout if the earth is cold and hard. The heart of a man is no different. If he feels unsafe, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, love remains a distant possibility, like clouds above a desert. But when the ground is warm, the air still, and the sky open, then, and only then, does something ancient begin to stir within him. There was once a young monk who asked his master, "How do I help someone open their heart?" The master did not speak. He simply walked to the garden and lit a small fire beneath a block of ice. The student watched in silence as the ice slowly began to melt. Drop by drop, a stream appeared. The master finally said, "Do not hammer the ice. Bring warmth, the rest will follow." This is the way of love for a man. The warmth of non-judgment, the stillness of acceptance, the fire of presence that expects nothing, yet sees everything. In such a space, even the most silent heart begins to speak. In daily life, consider the way a man may act in a world that demands his strength but punishes his softness. He moves through his day like a soldier, armored in logic, business, or detachment. Not because he does not feel, but because he was never taught that it is safe to do so. He may love deeply and silently, yet not show it. He may want to connect, but fears being misunderstood. So when someone comes along who does not pressure, simply allows, he breathes differently. He stays longer. He begins to open like a flower in the morning sun. Safety, then, is not a concept. It is a practice. It is the tone of voice that does not accuse, the eyes that do not scan for flaws, the space between words that invites sharing, not defense. And when this is offered to a man, something sacred unfolds. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Listening is not just with ears, but with presence. And presence creates the safety a man has been searching for his entire life. And so we walk further. After safety, there is something else that calls the heart of a man. It is not attention, for attention is loud and fleeting. It is admiration, quiet reverence that sees beyond appearance, beyond status, into the soul. A man does not fall in love when he is desired. He falls in love when he is respected. Not for what he owns or what he can provide, but for who he is when no one is watching. Attention may excite him, but it does not anchor him. Admiration, however, reaches deep. It tells him, "I see your discipline, even when you don't speak of it. I see your effort even when you act like it's nothing. I see your heart even when you try to hide it. This is the gaze that makes him stay. There is an old story of a calligrapher who was known throughout the land for his flawless writing. One day, a traveler came to see his work and stood silently as the artist wrote on parchment. When the calligrapher finished, he looked up, expecting praise. But the traveler said, "Only your strokes are true because your breath is steady. You do not control the brush, you surrender to it." The artist bowed deeply, for this was the first time someone had admired not his art, the stillness from which it came. So it is with a man. Admire not the results, but the roots. Not the mask, but the stillness beneath it. In life, this might appear in the simplest way. A woman telling her partner, "I admire the way you handle pressure without speaking poorly of others." Or a friend saying, "The way you care for your family, even when you're tired." I see that these moments are small, but they echo in the heart for a lifetime. When a man is admired for his essence, not his image, love begins to shape itself into devotion. He becomes protective, not because he must, because his soul has been honored. And when a man's soul is honored, he rises not in ego but in service. Lao Tzu wrote, "When you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everyone will respect you." This is the energy of true admiration. It does not inflate, it reflects. And in that reflection, the soul of a man finds peace as we sit with these truths. First, the need for safety. Then, the quiet power of admiration. We begin to see a pattern. Love for a man is not born in urgency. It is born in presence. Not in performance, but in perception. To love a man well is not to flood him with words, gifts, or demands. It is to see him clearly, to meet his silence without fear, to respect his journey, not try to rewrite it. And above all, to be the ground where his roots can finally rest. The journey of love is not a road we race down. It is a path through a forest, walked in bare feet, step by conscious step. It is felt more than it is spoken, known more than it is understood. And so we pause here, not to end, but to reflect. Ask yourself, am I offering safety or seeking to control? Am I giving admiration or trading in attention? Because the heart of a man, like a mountain, does not respond to storms. It responds to patience, to reverence, to time. And in that sacred space, love is no longer something we fall into. It becomes something we become. A man's heart is not a fortress waiting to be stormed. It is a well waiting to be drawn with quiet hands. When he begins to fall in love, it is not with noise, conflict, or emotional turbulence. Instead, he is drawn to depth, a calm and steady energy that feels like the deep part of a river where the current moves not with fury, with purpose. Love enters not when emotions erupt, but when peace arrives. He is not captivated by drama, but by something rarer presence, clarity, stillness. In a world that often confuses love with intensity, many mistake chaos for passion. But a man whose soul seeks true connection does not chase fire that burns too quickly. He is drawn to the quiet flame that warms steadily, never flickering with the winds of mood. Drama may stir the senses, but it exhausts the spirit. What nourishes him is depth. The kind of connection where he can simply be without defending, without performing. A Zen parable tells of a student who complained to his master, saying, "Every relationship I enter becomes conflict. People provoke me. Push, they pull, they demand." The master led him to a lake, still as glass. He said, "The surface." The student splashed the water. "Ripple spread. Now drink," said the master. The student bent down, but the water was murky from his strike. The master said, "Stillness reveals, agitation clouds. When your mind and the minds around you are in turmoil, nothing can be seen clearly, not even love. This is what happens in the presence of depth. It does not provoke. It does not stir needlessly. Instead, it offers a place to reflect, a place where a man may see not just you, but himself more clearly. And when he sees himself without fear in your presence, something within him begins to trust. In daily life, we may not realize how often relationships are shaped by unconscious drama, raised voices, sharp silence, accusations masked as questions. When someone enters a room with quiet, when they respond not with reaction, but with breath, the energy shifts. Imagine a partner who, instead of matching your frustration, simply places their hand gently over yours and says, "Let's not rush, let's understand." That one moment carries more power than 100 loud declarations. It is not submission, it is mastery. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus once said, "Very good character, when tested, reveals itself not in argument, but in composure." Love, when pure, mirrors this. It reveals itself not in shouting how much one cares, but in the willingness to remain composed in the face of tension. And so, a man falls in love not with those who challenge his peace, but with those who deepen it. Not with those who ignite temporary sparks, but with those who hold steady light. He does not need to be entertained. He longs to be understood, to be still, to be met in the quiet places where his truth dwells. As we move deeper, another truth unfolds, one that shapes not just how love begins, but how it is sustained. Love is not kept alive by intensity alone, but by consistency, like the rhythm of the seasons, like the rising of the sun. Love that endures is love that shows up, not just in moments of pleasure, but in the unremarkable spaces between. The presence that returns again and again builds something unshakable. Many believe devotion is built in grand gesture, but a man's heart is moved more by small, repeated moments of care than by sudden displays. It is the cup of tea brought without asking, the message that says, "I'm thinking of you," the voice that doesn't disappear when emotions shift. These acts are not loud, they are quiet patterns that speak of reliability. And in consistency, a man finds rest. He no longer looks over his shoulder, wondering if he is being tested. He no longer questions if the love is real only when things are perfect. In the mountains of old China, there lived a monk who would carry water from the river to the monastery every day, using 2 clay pots tied to a pole across his shoulders. One of the pots was cracked, and by the time he reached the monastery, it had lost half its contents. After many years, a younger monk asked him why he never replaced the broken vessel. The old monk smiled and pointed to the path they walked each day. Along the trail where the cracked pot dripped, wildflowers bloomed in vibrant colors. "I planted seeds along that side," he said. The flaw, repeated every day, became a gift. So it is with consistency. It does not promise perfection. It promises presence. It says, "Even when I am imperfect, I will still show up. Even when I falter, I return." And this to a man who has weathered storms, who has been abandoned by words not backed by actions. This is gold. He learns to trust not what is said, but what is repeated. He learns to lean on the presence that returns without being called. In the rhythms of nature, we see this truth everywhere. The tides do not announce themselves, but they come. The moon waxes and wanes, yet always reappears. Trees lose their leaves, yet return each spring in quiet triumph. There is no urgency, no drama, only sacred repetition. And it is through this repetition that life is sustained. So too is love. The ancient Indian sage Patanjali wrote, "When you are steadfast in your abstention from falsehood, all your actions will become naturally truthful." Similarly, when your presence becomes dependable, your love becomes believable. There is no need to convince. The rhythm speaks for itself. In relationships, this manifests in the simplest of ways. A father who continues to call his child every week even when there is silence. A friend who continues to reach out, not because of obligation, but because care has become a way of being. A partner who, in moments of tension, prepares your favorite meal or folds your clothes gently. These are not chores, they are offerings. And they say, without needing words, I remain. To the heart of a man, this rhythm is everything. It is not the size of the gesture, but the certainty of it. Love that is inconsistent feels like walking on shifting sand. Thrilling perhaps, but exhausting. Love that is consistent feels like standing barefoot on warm earth. Grounding, nourishing, enduring. When you combine depth with consistency, something rare is born. A love that does not scream to be noticed, but is impossible to ignore. A love that is not based on moods, but on values. A love that does not ask, do you feel something for me today? But rather, how have we watered the roots today? And so we come to rest in these two sacred truths, that a man opens to depth, not drama, and that he is anchored by consistency, not chaos. In this knowledge, we are offered a new way to love, not fast, not loud, but wise. We are invited to become not the storm that crashes, but the presence that remains. Ask yourself, gently, is my love deep enough to hold silence? Is my presence steady enough to be trusted? In your reflection, the answer may appear, not in thought, but in feeling. Not in words, but in breath. And when it does, you will find yourself not falling in love, but rising in it. When words become too many, meaning begins to scatter, but in silence, the soul begins to listen. For many men, love does not blossom through long speeches or dramatic expressions. It begins in the quiet spaces, the moments when nothing needs to be said because everything is already felt. A man falls in love through what is unspoken. The still glances, shared breaths, the energy that lingers, even when the room is quiet. He listens not only with his ears, but with the awareness behind his eyes, the stillness beneath his actions. In a world that often rewards loudness, the depth of a silent mind is easily overlooked. But it is within that silence that a man hears what truly matters. Not noise, not explanation, but presence. And when someone offers that kind of silent, grounded awareness, it reaches a part of him that words cannot touch. A story is told of a young student who followed a Zen master for many years. Eager to gain wisdom, he constantly asked questions, hoping for profound answers. The master remained mostly silent. One day, frustrated, the student cried, "Why will you not teach me?" The master led him to a quiet stream and sat down. They sat in stillness for hours. Finally, the master said, "The water does not speak, but it reveals the sky." In that moment, the student understood truth is not always taught with words. It is felt through presence. In the same way, when a man senses that someone can sit with his silence without growing uncomfortable, that they do not need to fill every moment, every emotion, or explain every feeling, he begins to feel at home. In that space, love grows not like fire, but like breath, quietly, rhythmically, endlessly. Consider daily life. Imagine a man coming home after a long day. He carries the weight of thoughts, unspoken stress, silent battle no one sees. What he longs for is not interrogation or correction. He craves stillness, perhaps a quiet room, someone sitting beside him, no demands, just presence. That to him is love, the one who does not press for his words but waits for them to rise naturally, like mist from morning grass, earns his trust. Heraclitus once said, "Excellence better than unmeaning words." There is deep wisdom in this. For many men, love begins not when they are told they are loved, but when they feel it in the calm patience of another's company. When they sense they are not being pulled or pushed, but gently held in awareness. This silent way of being is not passive, it is powerful. requires inner steadiness to hold space for another's process. It is not about waiting for them to change, but allowing them to be without disturbance. And in this sacred silence, a man begins to reveal more than he ever could through speech. We now come to the final truth on this quiet path, that a man's capacity for love is often a reflection of his inner mastery. Before he can truly love another, he must learn to sit with himself. Love, for him, is not a solution to loneliness. It is an expansion of peace, and that peace can only grow in the soil of self-discipline, clarity, and self-respect. When a man has not yet faced his shadows, he will cling to love out of fear. He will search for someone to complete him, to fix him, to carry what he has refused to carry himself. But when he has walked through the fire of his own making, when he has learned to be alone without being lonely, feel pain without collapsing, then he no longer seeks love to escape. He seeks love to share. In the mountains of the north once lived a hermit monk who had not spoken to another person in 10 years. A visitor finally found him and asked, "Why live alone for so long?" The monk smiled and answered, "I came here to become a better companion. Only when I enjoy my own company can I offer joy to another." His words, though few, echoed through the valleys like truth carried by wind. A man who has cultivated himself, who rises before the world wakes to sit in silence, who holds his word as sacred, who does not betray his own values, becomes a vessel strong enough to hold love. Not just romantic love, but the love of life itself. His love is not fragile. It does not depend on constant reassurance. It flows from the overflow of his own fullness. In nature, we see this wisdom in the mountains. The mountain does not bend to the storm. It remains rooted through the seasons, holding snow, wind, sun alike. A man who has found mastery within becomes like the mountain. He is not shaken by every change, and so he can offer stability. He does not grasp desperately, and so his presence is spacious. His love does not suffocate. It liberates. In real life, this looks like a man who honors his boundaries without needing to explain, who listens before he speaks, who serves without losing himself, who, even in disagreement, does not break into disrespect. These are the signs not just of maturity, but of mastery. And when such a man loves, his love is pure, not because it is perfect, but because it is intentional. The Stoic teacher Cleanthes wrote, "Lead me, O Zeus, and thou, O destiny, whithersoever I am appointed to go. I will follow without wavering." This is the spirit of a man who has surrendered not in weakness, but in strength. His life is guided not by impulse, but by principle. And that is what makes him capable of deep, lasting love. When a man reaches this place of inner mastery, he no longer needs love to save him. He no longer fears losing it, because he knows love cannot be taken from him. It is what he is. And so, when he gives it, he gives not out of need, but out of abundance, not to possess, but to reflect. We have now walked together through still waters and deep roots. We have seen how a man listens with silence and speaks with presence, how he leans into stillness, and how love for him is born not in reaction, but in reflection. And finally, how his deepest love emerges not from what he lacks, but from the mastery he has cultivated within. As you rest now with these truths, ask yourself, can I measure someone's silence without rushing to fill it? Can I cultivate the kind of love that flows from peace, not need? Let these questions echo within you, not as tasks to accomplish, but as invitations to return to stillness, to depth, to your own breath. And perhaps, as you listen deeply, you will find that love is not something to be earned. It is something to be remembered, a reflection of who we become when we are finally still